G'day ladies and gentlemen, the Buttsman here, and with Father's Day just around the corner, it's time now to think about what do I get for the man who once got on top of my poor mother. Well, let me tell you this, I've got the perfect gift for your old man. The Buttsman Father's Day bundle is now on sale. It includes this beautiful limited edition vegans apron, a you to the moon stubby holder, one of the best, and also a set of the highest quality drink coasters that you ever did see. The Father's Day pack is now on sale for $59.95. That's $30 off. $30 off. Absolutely incredible stuff. Head to isaacbutterfield.shop while stocks last.
Vaccine passports are coming. Someday soon, you may need to prove your COVID status to go to the pub, travel abroad, or even go to work.
G'day you good motherfuckers, the Buttsman here, and these are some very strange times. In answer to your question, you might be thinking, will I be getting a vaccine? Yes. Yes, I will. I'm not an anti-vaxxer by any means, but I understand why people are protesting, why people don't want it, why people are scared at this moment. These are unprecedented times, and never before in my life has the government been so in control of your every movement. And that is worrying. It's concerning. I don't think that the Australian government, the American government, the UK, all those people, I don't think that they have any nefarious plans with us. But it's not so much their plans. It's about the laws that are in place after this, during this, and in the last 12 months. Those laws, those rules, those directions that have been put in place, they worry me going into the future. If you can be told right now you can't leave your house by a government that you trust, what happens when you don't trust that government? It could be absolutely terrible. Right now in Australia, huge portions, massive portions of people are sent to their rooms. They're sent to the naughty corner. They are locked in their homes. They are told they're not allowed to leave. If you go outside to exercise, you have to wear a mask. Kids can't go to school, and most terrifyingly of all, you can't go to work and make a living. On top of that, gyms are closed, bars are closed, restaurants are closed. On top of that, there's been an increase of 25% of the prescription of antidepressants, anti-anxiolytics, and antipsychotics. It is not fucking good. I tend to agree that the best way to deal with this virus is vaccines. Does it matter if that's what I think? Not fucking at all. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist. What the fuck would I know? But what pisses me off, and it does my fucking head in, that you are not allowed to argue, debate, even disagree, even slightly disagree with the mandate set down by the powers that be at the government level. Because if you do, you'll be labelled as a fucking crazy person, an anti-vaxxer, and all this shit. You're allowed to disagree. That doesn't mean the world is broken down, and I think the fact that there is no disagreement within the government, or at least anything that we hear about, is reprehensible. We're just told what to do. I've even heard that some doctors aren't allowed to disagree with the public health advice given out by the Australian government. If that's true, that is so bad. That is terrible. These people who are educated are not allowed to give their own opinion. That is awful. We see the protests. We see all that shit. And a lot of those people are fucking crazy, right? They're all the conspiracy people, that lizards and the government and all that shit. But some people are there because they're angry because they've lost their job, or they can't feed their family, or they're depressed, or they're anxious, or they're freaking out. And it is woeful, and this comes from the media as well, you fucks, that anyone who disagrees with the government's opinion on this virus and all that shit is a nutbag. That is a terrible way for the population to live. I trust medical opinion. Why? Because I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. If I go into a hospital or a doctor's surgery, I trust them. But I also know the influence that the sugar industry had over medical doctors in the US many moons ago. They were paying them off to run with a particular ideology that benefited the sugar industries. Now, am I saying that's what's going on here? The doctors are being paid? No, but it just means that they're human. And that's why there needs to be debate and discourse. In my opinion, I don't like lockdowns. I don't think they are good. right? I just don't. I think there's just so many bad things that come from them. This idea that in Australia right now, there are governments here, the state governments, that want to keep the case numbers to zero. And that's just not achievable. It's not going to happen. Every day you lock down, you're costing billions of dollars in tax to future generations, to your grandkids and their grandkids. But it also makes me think, fuck, if they want to hit zero all the time, we should have locked down when one fucking idiot got a cough. That's what we should have done. Because if we're going to hit zero, that's the only way it's going to happen. Whether I agree with lockdowns or not, or vaccines or whatever, who gives a shit? What I hate is that no one asks questions. These media conferences, no one asks the hard questions. I haven't heard anyone ask, why do we have to wear masks outside when there's no evidence that you can spread this virus outside? Why is it when someone dies and they're vaccinated, you mention their comorbidities, but when they die and they're unvaccinated, you don't mention their comorbidities? How long ago were they diagnosed with coronavirus and then died? In the UK, you are considered a coronavirus death if you were diagnosed with that virus within 28 days. Cases are going up, but hospitalizations and deaths are going down. What does that mean? And if people don't want to be vaccinated, isn't it not their choice? That is the big part of this video. It is their choice whether or not they want to be vaccinated. I know a lot of people will be like, no, they need to be vaccinated to protect us. Okay, let's look at that. If 80% of the Australian population is vaccinated, right? All the vulnerable people are vaccinated. My gran, your gran, everyone's gran. Right? They're not going to get sick. They're not going to die in hospital from this virus. Does it really matter that fucking old mate from Bankstown who's been reading memes on Twitter and that's where he gets his information from, and we don't know whether those memes are correct or incorrect or made by Russian troll accounts about vaccines? Does it matter if he gets vaccinated? That's his choice. If the science tells us that we're much safer and not going to die from the COVIDs and all this shit if we're vaccinated, then that's our choice. We want to be vaccinated, all right? It's obvious. And I know a lot of people are freaking out. They're like, no. We have to get everyone vaccinated. If everyone's vaccinated, anyone that wants to be safe is vaccinated. And if they die and they're unvaccinated, that was their choice. Right now in Australia, we are in a state of panic. Our government doesn't know what the fuck to do. How's this? A New South Wales council shot and killed rescue dogs in a pound because they didn't want the employees of the pound driving to the pound to rescue them. And here's the fucking insane part. There was no coronavirus cases anywhere near this area. They were just in lockdown because everyone has to be in fucking lockdown. I fear that none of this video even matters because the Australian government and the people who are in charge of every state are under so much pressure and they don't know what to do. They don't want to piss everybody off on one side or the other side or anyone in the middle. So they just sit there. They do nothing. I fear that this is going to be the way it is in this country right here until Christmas. But it's what happens after Christmas that I really, truly worry about. And I have it on good authority because it was announced by the government that their plan is basically you won't be able to go anywhere without a vaccine passport. And that, I think, is terrible.
When you start opening at 70%, there are certain activities only vaccinated people can do. We're asking industry to dust off their COVID safety plans, get the QR codes in check, and we're also working on an app in New South Wales that will allow you to sign into a venue, but also have proof of your vax all in one.
Many senior members expect a proof of jab certificate to be required in some circumstances by next year.
I understand all of this if this was fucking smallpox, but if it kills less than 1%, why are we destroying the economy and people's lives over it? Walking into any business or any environment and having to show your medical records is an invasion of privacy. I know a lot of people sit there and they're like, nah, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter, I've got nothing to hide. That's not the point. That's got nothing to do with the situation. The situation is the government shouldn't be fucking in your lives as much as they are. They already are too much. I don't want the government knowing what medications I'm on and how bad my fucking hemorrhoids are flaring up. I don't want them to know. I don't want them to fucking know. However, I do understand why you have to have a vaccine passport to go to other countries. You already have to do that in some parts of the world. I get that. That's different, all right? You go into someone else's country. You go, okay, hey, I'm vaccinated. I'm not going to bring any shitty diseases with me, all right? But for the Australian government to say to people that they can't leave their house, they can't go do this without this passport, that is an invasion of privacy and it's an abuse of power. Milton Friedman, the author of The Tyranny of the Status Quo, said this: nothing is so permanent as a temporary government program. Once laws are introduced, once freedoms are removed, once your life is changed and you agree to it, it'll never come back. Their power over you is cemented within your own psyche. You stop questioning things. I agree with a lot of the things the government is doing, but this constantly having to prove that you are healthy enough to go in here or go in there, I don't think it's going to end well. What's worse is the undertone of every major government in the world. You can't do what you want to do. You can only do what we tell you to do. They're using your basic freedoms as a bargaining chip. You want to go outside? You want to train? You want to go to the gym? Well, you need to do what you're told, all right? Do it for a couple more weeks and we'll think about it. I'm happy to get the vaccine. I'm happy to do that. I'm happy to do these lockdowns. I don't want to, but I will do it if that's what everyone thinks is going to help people. I don't necessarily agree that that's the best way to do it, but I'll do it. What I won't do and what I won't cop is you telling me that I can't go to fucking work. And this bullshit, this political jargon and spin that this is the new normal. Fuck off. We are sailing perilously close to the edge of totalitarianism. It's fucking horrifying. My major issues with the passports themselves, number one is it's an invasion of privacy. Number two, it's just a fucking annoying. But number three is young people in Australia haven't had the access to the vaccine. So when the government says, hey, you can go outside soon, I'm sitting here going, well, where's my fucking vaccine, mate? And on top of young people not having the vaccine, the other group of people who haven't been vaccinated are minority groups. So that's a bit fucking rude. And QR tracking. Walking into venues and scanning your code and telling everybody that you're there. I don't have an issue with that per se. Like, it's annoying to do it. But for anyone at the government level to find out where you are all the time, right? To learn about you going into Woolies and then they... And it's not so much one of these things where you sit there and you go, hey, you know, I don't want the government knowing what I'm doing here or there or whatever because X, Y, Z. But what it does is it opens up the ability for them to take another step and then another step. All of a sudden, there's no privacy at all. That's where the adage of you give an inch, they take a mile comes from. The control, this dictatorship attitude is just, like, for example, this bloke was sentenced to 8 months prison for breaking health orders and travelling to Sydney from Brisbane to organise a protest. I wouldn't go to one of those protests. I don't see them as something that's beneficial. I think it does exactly the opposite. But to lock him in a cage for 8 months for doing that? What? What precedent does that set? All these press conferences, these mandates, all that shit. And not one person, great mug by the way, not one of these politicians has gone out there and said, hey, listen, we know that one of the main reasons people get hospitalised in most of the cases, something like 70% of the cases, is because they're overweight. So here's how we're going to get healthy. Have you been smashing the vitamin D to improve your immunity? What about some zinc? Have you been doing that? Have you been eating well? Have you been sleeping enough? Let's build our immune systems. No one has said that. In fact, they've done the opposite. Hide in your house. Don't go to the gym. All that shit. Have a look at this graph. This goes to show that as your BMI, your body mass index, increases, your risk of death does too. Now, I know there's issues with BMI. If you're a bodybuilder, you've got a high BMI, all that type of stuff. But it does give us a view of how disastrous things are if you are overweight. This constant fear is how people in power have controlled people without power for generations. Don't you do that, because God's going to get you. He's going to get you. Don't do it. Those people, we look back at them and say how silly that was to be so fearful. But we do it too. We feared terrorists in the early 2000s. Then swine flu, bird flu, fear. It keeps us in this area where we are too afraid to think outside the box and think for ourselves. The government's not inherently evil. All right, they're not doing this because they've got this other fucking plan in the back of their mind. I don't believe that shit. I just feel like they're overstepping the mark. And that's why I think the vaccine passports are a terrible idea because of the precedent it sets. Ladies and gentlemen, let me know what you think below. Be a good motherfucker. Peace in the Middle East. My dick stinks. Keep it moist. Toodaloo. Bye-bye.